Hey Gator Nation, good morning. Happy Sunday. That's right. Nope, you didn't sleep in, you didn't miss it. First Sunday game in Gainesville since 1933. How about that? Eastern Washington comes to town, and we are here to tell you all about it. Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Cardozo. It is our First and 10 show presented by Wells Fargo. Of course, the Gators on the road last week, first time away from the swamp. Almost got it done, but played really, really well. And I think Coach Napier certainly saw a lot of things that he can build on, and we'll find out today if that is the case. A good week of practice despite the hurricane, and hope everybody was safe throughout all that. But we are going to play football today, and certainly excited to be doing that. So about Eastern Washington, an FCS school, not an FBS school, but they play really, really well. They play on a red field as well. But of course, it's green here in the swamp, and we are going to break it down right now with Kyle, Chris, and Scott.
Now joined by the voice of the Gators, Sean Kelly, senior writer of FloridaGators.com, Scott Carter here on the First and 10 show. And guys, obviously this is a very much of a different week. Hurricane Ian here running through the state of Florida. And Sean, we'll start here. Obviously the football game is secondary. A lot of the conversation is just everybody staying safe, especially Billy Napier said that about 15 of his players are going to be significantly impacted, and their families are going to be impacted by this hurricane. Just what do you think is the psyche of this team heading into this game with almost the game feeling secondary?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways that, we've noticed this throughout the week that, all of us have watched, television channels that we don't normally watch, perhaps on a heavy basis. And, I know Coach Napier said, earlier this past week, it could be 15 players. The way the storm is twisting and is twisted through basically the state before it leaves, it could be even more than that. So, and certainly when you have a roster as heavy as Florida does with so many families in Florida, and not to mention staff and everybody else, it is certainly on the minds of everyone. And in some ways, football, at least for the younger members of the organization, it can serve as some kind of way to get away from it for a little bit, as opposed to trying to be glued to it 24/7. The thing is this: the bottom line is there's a lot of people in the state of Florida who have suffered greatly here this week. And we won't know the true devastation of this whole thing probably for even more weeks to come. So certainly we're grateful, obviously, to be getting ready for football today, all of us. But at the same time, there are many who, this is not on their minds even as we sit here on game day.
And Scott, you're in the office every day, and it's hurricane season. It seems like every other season we go through this during, the journey of football season. But can you take the fans behind the scenes on what it takes to adjust a game day and everything, all the resources that you need to have a game go off without a hitch in the swamp? Just some of the changes and how quickly this administration's had to do it to get this kickoff here on this Sunday.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kyle had some practice in the last decade, whether or not you go back to Hurricane Matthew or a couple of others earlier in the 2010s. You have to move quickly, and there's a lot of meetings going on a week like this at UA with local, state, university officials, just to try to continue to monitor and, keep everyone up to date as much as you can. Like Sean said, you really never know about these kind of storms until after they pass and, where they really cause the most damage. So you just have to get ahead of it and take the measures needed, because there's a lot of resources that normally are needed to, set up a Gator football game that may be used elsewhere in the state with the hurricane recovery or assistance. So that's really what goes into it. And, here we are going to get this one, looks like, into the books, and it hasn't happened at other times. So you're glad that you can get these done. And hopefully, as you guys said earlier, that when it's said and done, it's not going to be as bad as maybe some of the forecast is.
And Sean, let's be the distraction for the fans. Let's talk about this football team. And last week, it really looked like Anthony Richardson made a nice jump, best game of his career in a crazy atmosphere, over 101,000. When you evaluate, Sean, what you saw this past Saturday, what comes to mind from Richardson?
Well, he let it rip. I think he played less careful than probably the 2 weeks prior. Looked a little bit more like he did in week one against Utah. I think he was fueled a little bit in this. It's not a head-to-head because quarterbacks don't find themselves on the field at the same time. But at the same time, I think Richardson was perhaps inspired or fueled by the presence of Hendon Hooker and rose to the occasion in a lot of ways. You could obviously see the work that was put in the week prior with wide receivers and coordinators as to kind of jump starting that pass game. Lo and behold, finally in week 4, a touchdown pass was thrown, and strangely enough, to a tight end. And those tight ends actually had a nice weekend last weekend at Tennessee. If I'm not mistaken, 5 catches combined between Zipper and Zanders. But, a lot of people got touches. And Anthony ends up with not only just the 2 passing touchdowns, but 2 on the ground as well. I thought that he was poised in a hostile environment. I thought he had fun with it too. So that's the Anthony Richardson, I think, that makes him very dangerous when he is somewhat unpredictable and playing less careful and with, reckless abandon. That might be the way to go.
And Scott, you look at defensively, Coach Napier had mentioned that there were individual blown assignments, and that is the difference in a game like that where you see the amount of explosive plays that Tennessee got. What are you looking to see from this defense as they try to have a bounce back week?
Yeah, they're going to have to tighten up some things, Kyle. There's some miscommunication issues that the coaches have pointed out since then. Certainly in the secondary, we saw that lead to a couple of wide open, big Tennessee passing plays that, Gators didn't really have anybody in the same zip code. That you just can't do that in those big SEC games on the road. So they're going to have to tighten that up and just, play better. It's again, in college football, it's not like they can go out and make a trade or anything right now. You got to work with what you have. And this is a new system, I think, that, still is kind of evolving week to week, offensively and defensively. And you add a lot of young players who are getting their first real extensive playing time in the process, and you're going to have some of those mistakes. But they're just, this is a game, Kyle, where best case scenario, they do play a lot better defensively. Anthony Richardson continues to, build on last week's performance at Tennessee, and they gained some confidence out of this game that, we thought they may have been able to do a couple of weeks ago against USF, and that one ended up being a nail biter that they escaped with the win. It was a win, but not exactly one that sent, the Gators dancing into University Avenue that night. So they're one of those, and just to get a big win as they really get into the heart of the SEC schedule after this.
And Sean, Eastern Washington comes in. This is a rescheduled game from that COVID year, but this is a group that's been very good at the FCS level. They're a few years removed from being the runner-up in the FCS. They won a national championship in the last decade in 2010. They put up some good offensive numbers. This is a pretty good FCS team coming to town today.
Yeah, a lot of really, really great tradition at the FCS level, and obviously in the Big Sky Conference, which is one of the better conferences in FCS as well. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think they're as good as, say, that team that you mentioned that finished as a runner-up. Some of that might be that they have a brand new offensive coordinator, a brand new defensive coordinator. So it seems like they've had some time, some trouble in the time of getting adjusted through these first couple of weeks. And at first glance, I looked at their quarterback and saw, oh, here we go again, another fifth-year senior, another guy north of 22 years old as their starting quarterback. But yet Talkington has not been the guy over these last several seasons. He has big shoes to fill and certainly, a lot of time on task in that program. But he, much like Anthony, is still learning how to be a starter, even at an advanced age. So new coordinators, a quarterback in that situation, and certainly a defense that has had some troubles in stopping, some of the more powerful teams. Even just in the Oregon game, their offense struggled to get first downs early in that football game. They're going to have to play perfect. And certainly, just like any boxer has a chance on any given punch, I just think through 4 quarters, it's going to be difficult for Eastern Washington to come down here and make history in the swamp. Yet, at the same time, kind of as Scott mentioned, South Florida, gave all that Florida could have wanted in that week 2 matchup. So in a lot of ways, I'm sitting here looking at this game as a real chance for some of the numbers for the season to start to even out after the Gators have faced 3 top 20 teams already. I think it's a continuation perhaps for Anthony Richardson with regard to what he can build on from last week. And still maybe a chance for this defense to get some more things fixed before, again, as Scott mentioned, you get into the bulk of that SEC schedule, starting with homecoming in Missouri.
Yeah, and Scott, this will be the final one, but this is a very important stretch for the Gators. You have 3 straight home games, starting with Eastern Washington, Missouri, and then LSU. After this game, you really start to head into the bulk and the rest of SEC play. This is an important stretch for Florida here to understand their identity, start to play well, and start to play more consistent with these home games coming up.
Yeah, when you looked at the schedule at the start of the season, you knew those first 4 games were going to be difficult. With the new coach and Billy Napier and a young roster, as we've talked about, and 2-2, that's what a lot of people had. That's I could easily have seen 2-2 after those 4 games a month ago. Maybe not necessarily the way it shaped out with the upsetting of Utah and then losing to Kentucky at home. But I mean, Kentucky and Tennessee are now both top 10 ranked teams. So none of these losses are anything to kind of just hang your head about and give up on the season. I mean, it's going to be like that the rest of the way with the SEC. We all know what the competition's like week in and week out. And if they can, take care of Eastern Washington, then Missouri, and then you have that passionate game against LSU, always something weird happens in that game. It's always seemingly competitive. But if they can get escape with, wins all 3 of these at home, they'll be really feeling good about themselves by the time they have Georgia and some of those other SEC rivals, and of course Florida State later in the season. So this is an important chance, I think, for the Gators to kind of grow up and take some of the lessons they've learned through these first 4 games and use them to their advantage in the next 3.
All right, guys. Well, appreciate the time. Always love talking ball with you, and we enjoy your coverage of the game here coming up.
Thanks, Kyle.
Great job, Kyle. Thank you.
All right, everybody, stay safe out there with the hurricane coming through. Gators in Eastern Washington from the swamp as we send it back to Jeff.
All right, a great trio right there as they tell you everything that you need to know. Well, we told you practice went really, really well, and there's some young guys that are starting to figure it out. Billy Napier is really excited about the young group that he has, including this guy. We mic'd him up for you so you can hear him throughout practice. Here's Tyreek Sapp.
I'm blessed to be out here, baby. Blessed. Let's stop, brother. Let's do it. Big game, big game for us, bro. Big game for us. They trying to hear what I'm talking about, man. We got food in front of us. We gonna eat it. Hey, we gotta take advantage of these days right here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Good job, Hook. Good job. Good job. Let's take advantage. Let's have a great practice. And let's roll this on the Saturday, baby.
All right, there's Tyreek Sapp for you. Young guy, a lot of energy, and certainly excited to watch him today and for several more years. He comes from Fort Lauderdale. That's right, down in South Florida. So hello, South Florida. Hello, Fort Lauderdale. And wherever you are across the country right now, throw it in the comments. We want to know where you're watching from and where you are rooting on the Florida Gators. Well, so many things to still discuss and a lot of different things that are happening. We've got to talk to Billy Napier, but before we do with Sean Kelly, let's give you a little more Gator-made stuff with Savannah Bailey.
Hi, I'm Savannah Bailey. I serve as our Senior Director of Player Relations and of Gator-Made here at Florida Football. Gator-Made is our holistic development of our football scholar athletes to make sure that they're well-rounded young men, that they have every opportunity possible to succeed and to use their transferable skills from football into other contexts for their lives. One way we get to do that is help them train for media. So when you think about all of the press conferences, post-game, pre-game, all of their social media and things like that, we want to make sure that their personal brand is shown and what that individual is able to share about their lives and really the person behind the helmet. How do you hear about their story and their perspective in a way that highlights who they really are? People often think that with NIL, there's a lot more going into what media training looks like, but that's something that we've always been passionate about here here at the University of Florida. For us, it's how can we make sure that our guys are well equipped, well spoken, and can share their perspective in a way that highlights who they are.
Well, Coach, there's no doubt that media training has to be an essential part of a program as high profile as the Florida Gators. Our folks, of course, led by Savannah Bailey, do a great job of that.
Yeah, no, I think it's part of the growth process. It's part of representing the University of Florida, right? Our guys have a platform not only for themselves as individuals, but also they represent all that came before them. They rep this great fan base and certainly this institution. So, I think it's part of what we do is equip them and educate them and try to help them represent themselves the right way.
Well, Coach, let's turn our attention to Eastern Washington. The Eagles are scheduled to be here at noon on Saturday. Non-conference action for your football team. What's ahead for the Gators in facing them this week?
Yeah, no, I think Eastern Washington is, very respectable FCS program. They've got a consistency and a culture of winning. They're a consistent playoff contender. They've made it deep into the playoffs for a number of years. This Big Sky Conference is, it's one of the best in the country. So I think we're going to have to be ready to go. Certainly a great opportunity for us to get back on the field and go compete. So we look forward to the opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting as we tape our visit here on this Monday, all eyes on Hurricane Ian. And Coach, that might have an effect on not only the week of preparation, but certainly the football game. Too early to tell a whole lot here, but certainly want to point that out as our preparations for Saturday are ongoing.
Yeah, no, I think, we're just, our thoughts and prayers are with the people that may be in the tougher spots throughout the state, and issues that these things can create. Very thankful for all the people that are in kind of a career where they're in service mode here and they're really trying to help other people. So, these things are a challenge, certainly independent of football. So, we're going to try to do our very best to help anybody within our organization that maybe has issues with their family, and certainly here in Gainesville as well.
Coach, as always, thanks. We wish everyone safety and all the best this week. Good luck to the Gators this week. Let's get that third win.
Go Gators.
Well, it was really neat talking to Billy Napier after the game in Knoxville. And, he talks about, hey, this is game 4, year 1. But each day, each week, each game, it has certainly gotten better. And I think we'll see that today inside the Swamp. But Billy Napier really excited. We know what Anthony Richardson did last week at the quarterback position. Most yards ever in an SEC game. So AR's got it going. That run game's going to get it going. And we'll see what the defense is able to do. But a lot of excitement inside the Swamp again. Appreciate everybody for adjusting their NFL schedule, their fantasy football schedule. Make sure you check out your starting lineups and do that, because you're going to get into the Swamp and you're going to be so engaged with what the Gators are doing. Like, oh no, I didn't start so-and-so. But I'm warning you right now to make sure you do it. And I'm warning you, we're going to do this a couple more weeks, because next week, folks, it is homecoming. It'll be another noon game. It'll be such a fun weekend here in Gainesville. The Hall of Fame induction ceremony is on Friday night, so Gator greats like Chandler Parsons, Jeremy Foley, the former athletic director, will be here. So many other former Gator greats. Joe Hayden, former football player, is here as well. So that'll be a big night. And then, of course, homecoming inside the Swamp against Missouri on Saturday. Well, right now, we'll get you ready for everything that you need to know. So again, be ready, watch it, listen to it on the Gator Sports Network from Learfield, and we will do this again next week. It is our First and 10 show presented by Wells Fargo. I'm Jeff Cardozo. Go Gators.